Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Lion in Chief event, in which the main courser is added to the game. So this week marks the 8-year anniversary of this YouTube channel. We've been covering the weekly Gems of War video every single week, this exact video, for 8 years now, and we shall continue to do so, as long as the game's still around. But anyways, thank you all so much for the continued support. We'll be celebrating it tomorrow night. I say tomorrow because it's the 23rd, Tuesday night, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we do here on the channel every single night. But the reason we're going to be celebrating it then is that it's technically the actual anniversary day. However, of course, this is the anniversary video in a sense, so thank you everyone again, and yeah, for another multiple years, however long the game lasts for. Anyways, so let's start getting into things. Things that happened this week. Not much. We actually have a pretty uneventful week, oddly enough. The week does mark 30-star Leonis Empire, so that's pretty cool. You'll be able to get an extra armor there if you so go for it, though we already have had a blue kingdom that can be 30-starred, so it's competing with that, and you might not have enough resources to already do so. So for the most part, it's going to be one of those kingdoms stuck at 26-star for the rest of time until we get better ways to go get more of those, oh wait, I don't remember their name. The Forge Scrolls. No, not the Forge Scrolls. The deed books. But we need more deed books so we can actually go upgrade all these kingdoms. Anyways, let's start getting into things. So we start from the top as we normally do, the main courser. We're actually going to be buying a ton of him this week because, for any of you who don't know, whenever a glory troop is available for 300 glory, you can actually cap out on how much gold you can get relative to how much glory you spend. And I want to go get to 1 billion gold spent this week, so if you ever want to stock up any week that they're 300, if you have a bunch of excess glory, you do this and boom, you get a whole million gold every single time, and technically even more because you could open the glory keys and gold keys. So we'll be doing that a little bit tomorrow when we go and donate the final 1 billion gold for the mile mark, as well as many things that we'll be doing as far as spending all of our excess resources. But anyways, but yeah, if you haven't been doing that, there's a way to basically convert all your spear glory into gold. I'm also getting a ton of other resources. Anyways, as far as your troop itself, it is pretty lackluster, but you might use it a little bit as a mana accumulator this week. He explodes 1 gem boosted by Leonis Empire allies, meaning by default he will use explode 2 gems up to a maximum of 5. His troop type and a few that are similar to him, like for Damon and a few others, they're just pretty useless. You only really use them if you're in a restriction where you really don't have a better option. And earlier on in the game, depending on what your mana accumulation options are, this might be what you end up using for the raid event or for the Underspire, or Underworld. Yeah, Underspire was right the first time. Or for the Underspire this week. But for the most part, if you have better options, you obviously just won't be using this. And it's pretty much another dead content troop. However, with that dead content troop, we do have enough to go and 30-star Leonis Empire. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, we might have already had enough to 30-star Leonis Empire. But it's definitely 30-starable now, so regardless which way you look at it, it can definitely be 30-starred. So obviously, as per most kingdoms, as we mentioned earlier, it is deed book locked, so it's pretty much stuck at 26 until we get better ways of obtaining more deed books. As far as event keys are concerned, obviously with the kingdom being such a high level, you can end up doing that and trying to get to 30-star and all that. As far as the actual troops, there's not too much to mention here. As far as things that are not in drop table, the main ones to mention are the Leonis Tower as well as the Emperor. Leonis Tower is only craftable in the Soul Forge. The Emperor is only from Vault Keys, and of course, we just had a Vault Weekend last weekend as well as yesterday. So you could go use all those Vault Keys to get him if you don't have them. He's useful for a few events this week because he has a bunch of stats. He's basically like Empress, but half as much, but he does it to your first slot instead of last slot, so definitely has a lot of use cases still. Just not used as much as Empress in the current state of game, but in a restriction where you have to use him, he's okay. And the other troops that are not available are all 5 of the faction troops from City of Thieves. As far as things that are available from here that you probably want to get, if you currently do not have a maxed out Tagaraki, it is worth considering. You might also just want to use a blue orb if you get him to something like Legendary, and then just do the blue orb to get him all the way max if you don't plan on opening too many keys. However, he is in the event key drop table this week, as is always in all the glory and gold key drop table if you want to go for him there. But he's also in the event queue drop table this week, so you can target him there if you so choose. He's pretty relevant as he's pretty much the strongest troop you can be running for Bounty Hunter, and if you don't currently have him max, the higher you have him, not only will he do a little bit more damage, that is pretty minuscule. The bigger thing is that you'll be able to get more bounty points for when you use them in Bounty Hunter events, and we have a Bounty Hunter event this Friday to go and utilize them with, so if you don't have a max, good time to consider doing so. Beyond that, nothing really too special unless you're just looking for some utility troops here and there. Biggest issue with all the mythics from this place is they're all utility mythics. We have one of the best cleansers in the entire game. We have a Burn Fairy Fire, which is relatively situational because Burn's normally used in triple damage Skull, and Fairy Fire is obviously used in cast teams. So a little bit of a conflicting interest there as it's basically being used in both Skull and spell damage. whereas normally you go all in on one or the other, and he's a kind of a mix of both in a sense, while also having no skull creation. So he's in a weird middle ground where he just doesn't really get to do that much. There's actually an ultra rare troop, the Boggist or whatever it's called, that's based on this thing, or more so, this thing is based on that. And this thing is honestly weaker than it in most situations, as the other troop applies burn and fairy fire on hit, whereas this only gains boost ratio from it. It doesn't actually do it on hit, it only does it per extra turn. Aside from that, Deo, also utility troop, mostly just for lowering stats on the enemy team. But because it destroys gems instead of creating them, it doesn't really have that good of an extra turn potential, so it doesn't really see much usage. So, for the most part, pretty skippable as far as event keys. I would say the two main things is the Tagraki we already went over, and if you don't have a copy of Divine Ishbala, worth considering. Main benefit of her is she's a 50% mana start with 40% mana start, but she does it for all Divines in the game. Hopefully they'll eventually revert this back to 50% because it still feels so weird that it's only 40% on her. It's so out of place compared to everything else at 50%, but it wouldn't even be broken in the current state of the game. But she's still used for this. There's a lot of Divines that can end up utilizing it. Has a really good convert into double enchant, so still has some use cases. Just really clunky that she still does 40 instead of 50, but still worth considering in some compositions, including this week as far as what we'll have available for some of the game modes. Anyway, speaking of game modes, we do have raids going on this week. Raids, pretty straightforward. Just make sure to go get the new guy and hit everything with it. Not only does he have double magic, but you need him in your team to even have double score, so make sure he's on every single one of your teams. He actually has a really good ability. There's actually a troop that already does his ability from the kingdom, but he does it to bosses, so you'll be getting an absurd amount of damage. Basically, his premise is that he gains a bunch of damage based on how much armor is across all allies. There's another troop, the Pride Guard, from this exact kingdom of red-green, that does this exact same thing. I believe it just does a few less damage, or this one does a few more, the other one does a few less. But they do actually the exact same thing. The biggest difference is that he does it based on Ascension for when he's hitting a boss, so he'll be able to hit things like Zolgoth, Catheric, stuff like that for 5 times damage. Combine that with the double magic, and he will basically one-shot everything the entire time, as he has that 4-to-1 armor boost ratio across your entire team that gets 5 times multiplied. It also gets double magic multiplied, so he is going to be one-shotting absolutely everything. On top of that, he also has a little bit of score reduction, which can be a little bit helpful, though as per usual with the Boss Slayer thing, not really that useful of a trait, as you'll mostly just be one-shotting it anyways off of your ability. I also highly advise buying all the way to tier 3 at least to go and get this weapon. You might even want to go tier 4 if you want to double up on this troop. Just make sure not to ascend it to a point where you only have 1 copy left. But both of these are pretty good buy tiers. But at bare minimum, you want to go for tier 3. This weapon's going to be really useful for a lot of things this week. It ends up exploding a bunch of blue gems, grants a random status effect to all Leonis Empire allies, which of course is your restriction for not only raids, but also Underspire. Your whole team is going to be Leonis Empire anyways. And then summons a random Leonis Empire troop. So if you use this in your second slot or further back, you'll be able to constantly keep resummoning to your first slot. You can still use this in first slot and use it with a tank hero class. However, if you use it second or further, it'll constantly keep resummoning and making meat shields, which you're definitely going to need for some of these game modes, especially if you lack some of the higher damage sources. Aside from that, yeah, plays out pretty much the same as usual. Just keep spamming this guy with all of his damage and you should be good to go. Anyways, next we have ourselves the other events that we have going on throughout this week. This Tuesday, we'll be celebrating the 8-year anniversary of this channel. However, we also have the City of Thieves faction, which if you're not keeping at level 20 to farm infinitely, it is the best faction pretty much to farm as far as the order that you could do it in, just because it has all of the rooms within one single battle of the starting room. So if it ends up having the extra gold room or anything similar, like the Cedric room, you can end up taking it immediately and get a lot of extra resources. It does have a bit less treasure rooms than like some of the other ones that are out there these days, but the flexibility of having them right at the beginning still makes it among one of the best places to farm within the game. And yeah, you can do that this Tuesday if you want to, or simply just complete out the event as per usual. Though keep in mind, if you are keeping this kingdom at level, or faction at level 20, that you should skip this event, as doing any of the event will increase your level of your City of Thieves. Wednesday, we have ourselves the Pet Extra Turn Pet. So this thing gives you more extra turns whenever you do Treasure Map game mode. Remember that game mode that barely exists? Yeah, that one. It basically just makes it so you can get slightly more loot from your treasure maps. It makes it a little bit easier if you haven't already got to get the 60 turn achievement, or not the 60 turn achievement, I mean the 2 vault achievement. There's an achievement for getting 2 vaults on the same treasure map, and this makes it a little bit easier as it gives you a few extra turns that you'll be able to have to try to squeeze through and get that double vault onto the board. So it can be helpful for that, and that's pretty much its only purpose unless you really like doing treasure hunt. Thursday we have the class event for Warpriest. Warpriest pretty underwhelming. It has a little bit of stun, but compared to Elementalist, it has like a negative amount of stun. It is just so bad relative to what Elementalist does. However, it is pretty useful this week, not only having a little bit extra stats, but also having synergy within Leonis Empire. And given that you are restricted to have to use a Leonis Empire team for most things this week, it can be pretty helpful in that regard. And aside from that, as we already mentioned, we have Bounty Hunter this Friday, which plays out pretty much the same as per usual. Go like Ogress Tagraki, one other true damager like Corpse Mirror, and then just put the new bounty troop all the way in 4th slot, kill everything, win, and it plays out the same as you pretty much always would. As far as Soulforge, troops are pretty ignorable, nothing particularly noteworthy unless you want to get like one of the more recent ones that you might not have gotten in the past. But otherwise, it's all useless. There isn't a single mythic here that's really worth going out of your way for unless you just need it for completionist sake. As far as weapons, I would say the same thing. Do keep in mind, you should only get the Lion's Reach from the current raid event. Do not bother buying in Soulforge. It is way better value just getting it through gems through the current event. I think it's like 210 gems to reach it. And if you're going for tier 4 to get multiple of the legend or multiple of the raid troop, you're going to be getting this passively anyways. So definitely do not craft this from Soulforge as you're going to get it anyways. And aside from that, it's basically just what you need for utility troops this week. One thing that's kind of unfortunate, the Doomed Promise. You would think this weapon would be really good this week, and to some degree it is. It gives a bunch of armor to all yellow allies, and a bunch of magic to them as well, or to all allies. The armor only to yellow allies. The big issue with this is even though there are 2 things from this kingdom that boost based on armor, neither of them use yellow. They're red-green and red-blue. It's really weird that they didn't make the new one like red-yellow or something, or blue-yellow, or any color where this would be able to be used. Because if so, you could just like spam him and then use this weapon. But because they didn't, it is actually not worth this to try to armor boost that one troop. I would not advise doing so, as it's just not worth it. You're not going to have enough yellows on your team, and it's just not going to get enough value to really be used. So a little bit unfortunate, because this could have been one of the few times where this ring actually has some usage, but due to the coloration of the new troops, not so much. Aside from that, basically, if you're just looking to any weapon to assist, like this Leonis Empire weapon, that's pretty good. I think I ended up using Orpheus Book because of enchant, which is a little bit underrated on it too. Any of these that end up getting enchant, pretty solid. And enchant itself, so it gets 2 mana per turn, so even when it misses, it'll be able to get its mana back. It's really good on these double mana accumulation non-exploding weapons, because since it's not exploding, it doesn't really feed back into itself. So the way that you do feed back into itself is off the enchant you immediately get when casting it. So you basically only get weapons this week based on if you either need it for kingdom levels or if you need it for any kind of game mode this week. With that being said, let's start going over all of the teams. All of which are in the description if you want to go and copy paste any of them. So for our very first team, we have the raids. For raids, you're restricted to have to use the Lion Commander in order to get double points, which you're going to want to use anyways because he's so good for it. Beyond that, it is Leonis Empire restrictions. So Leonis Empire weapons and Leonis Empire troops. So we are allowed to use any hero class, and we actually are going down the Dragon Guard hero class for this route. Main reason being, we're actually synergizing on this with Burning. We can switch this out for something more offensive or defensive if we so choose. Elementals, of course, being the more defensive route, and the more offensive route being something like Slayer hero class. Basically, what we're doing here is using the burn off of this thing, while still getting some very thin Fairy Fire, but mostly the burn, in order to end up hitting triple damage burning. Every single skull we do does triple damage, so we'll be able to go poke with that to get all of our value in there. We're using this just for its mana accumulation. Based on this position, we are not actually getting any resummon, though you could reposition it as such if you so wanted to in order to do so. Divine Ishbala, we're giving 40% mana start to ourselves as well as Flame of Anu just to get them rolling a little bit quicker. Then we have our little bit of mana accumulation to Skull Spam, which we'll have triple damage burning into. So for the first 3 units that can be burned, we'll just go and kill them out. Even if they can't be burned... Oh, wait, never mind. This one actually doesn't carry stun. I forgot. We're not using the other hero class. I was going to say, we could stun them, but no, we actually can't stun them with this team. Hopefully, they just won't be immune to burn, and even if they are, they'll be Fairy Fired. So we can just hit them with normal cast damage and we'll be fine. Keep in mind, even after this guy does kill the boss, he is still going to have double magic in this mode, and he still has a 4-to-1 boost ratio based on all armor across your team. So he's going to hit pretty hard. And any kind of time you're in doubt of what to build for this current raid event, just spam him. You won't be able to get away with this for things like Underspire because it doesn't have double magic there. But based on his armor boost ratio, combined with the fact that he has double magic for raids, just spamming him is going to be one of your easier ways to do so. For example, with this team here for the lower rarity team, we can actually just double up on Lion Commander. I'm showing it here for anyone who doesn't go as deep, as this only requires buying tier 3, so you can get the weapon and 1 copy of the troop. But if you buy tier 4, you can actually replace the second Pride Guard, especially if you don't even have him or don't want to bother upgrading him, and just go double Lion Commander. You could even technically go triple Lion Commander if you really want to. Go like weapon in there and then go Lion Commander, him, Lion Commander, Lion Commander. Or go like devoted the weapon double Lion Commander could also be a pretty safe way. Like doing this and then doubling up on it. It really just comes down to how you end up wanting to go about it. Overall. How did I just have it? No, it wasn't like that. Now I forgot how I just had to set up. Wait. Hold. Wait. Well, we're going to do him initially. You know what? Honestly, I kind of like it better like that. Kill out the Devoted and just have the resummon in there. Yeah, we're going to keep it like this, actually. And if you have double Lion Commander from buying tier 4, you can just replace out the Pride Guard. Or you can keep the Pride Guard there. Pride Guard has the advantage of covering 1 additional color. However, he has the disadvantage of having 4 less base damage and double less magic, because this guy will have double magic during that specific mode. So if you do have double, probably worth doubling up. Otherwise, that would be your team. Devoted for the mana accumulation, also gives a bunch of cleanse and more importantly armor, which of course both of these boost ratio from, or double of them if you're doubling up. We have our weapon here for a bunch of explodies into a bunch of mana accumulation. Also keeps resummoning the random troops from Leonis Empire, so you'll constantly keep having a tank there. Running elementals just to play it even tankier, though you could go with a different hero class for mana accumulation or anything else if you so choose. Even the hero class from the kingdom itself, the Warpriest. And then we're just spamming Lion Commander until we win, making him our primary damage source, either doubling up or with the Pride Guard as well. Either way. Next, we have ourselves the faction teams. City of Thieves is a blue-purple faction, with weapon being able to be anything. For this first team, we ended up going down a pretty standard Rowan route, just using 50% mana start into instantly getting it to full mana. Next, we have ourselves another pretty standard team, High King Iron Good Zolgoth with a pretty standard Thrall Leprechaun mana accumulator. If you don't happen to have High King Iron Good Zolgoth, just replace this with Hero as tank and then whatever your best damage source is, and you'll be perfectly fine to run through the entire mode. Next, we have ourselves the Pure Faction team. There are basically two ways that you can end up running this. One is doubling up on King of Thieves. The other one is doubling up on Tome Robber. It is stronger to double up on Tome Robber. However, what Tome Robber does is it creates a bunch of skulls based on how much gold you have, up to 14. The problem with this is if she misses a single time, which even with 14 skull spam can end up happening, you're going to take a lot of damage to something that has no score reduction, or very minimal if you have that one score reduction potion for 25%. But otherwise, no score reduction. And he could very easily die if he hasn't gotten all his stats yet from his ability, as he does gain a bunch of stats every time he casts. So if this does end up happening, you're out a King of Thieves. You want to make sure you have at least one King of Thieves going into the final fight, so that he can keep building up stats, so you have a little bit of a wall, as you kind of need him in order to tank, where you just keep going for the Street Thief in order to get purple mana accumulation. That Thieves fits into King of Thieves, so we can keep getting stats, and eventually you go for the Tome Robber in order to go secure kills. But yeah, a double King of Thieves is just a little bit of a safer route, because if it basically gives you leeway for when you inevitably miss with Tome Robber. So that way, as long as you go into the fight with one King of Thieves, a Street Thief, and a Tome Robber, you should be good to go. So this just gives you some leeway to sacrifice one without having to completely restart the faction. Because if you're going into the final battle with double Tome Robber and Street Thief, while you can win, it's going to be a lot harder compared to having something like a King of Thieves, a Street Thief, and a Tome Robber. So I personally would just double up on it. It's the safest way to go about it. But if your stats are really high, doubling up on Tome Robber is quicker. Next, we have Warpriest. Warpriest basically is this standard Thursday class event. So we're just running with whatever weapon we feel like. In this case, we're just running Black Manacle, and we're just doing it with a bunch of Mana Link going into it, in this case, purple. One nice thing about this is he also ends up creating additional purple. Combining this with Archmage's hero class, we actually have a, what is this, a +7 purple, up to +8 if we set the banner. So I went with the double-double just so we can go for brown in case there's somehow no purple on the board, which is very unlikely, though still possible. But if there's no purple at all, it just gives us another way to get mana. But yeah, just a lot of purple mana. And he ends up even creating more, so you just keep spamming Black Manacle or any similar weapon until you end up winning. And finally, we have Underspire, which is, oddly enough, the exact same restriction as Raids. However, the kind of teams that you're going to build are probably going to be quite a bit different with, compared to Raids. The main noteworthy difference is that the troop does not have double magic, and by the troop I mean the Raid troop. In this mode, while you still can use the Lion Commander in your team comp, and I believe I do in the Low Rarity team, he does not gain double magic in this mode. And while he does still have 4 higher base damage than the other guy, he will not have the double magic that he has from Raid, so do be wary of that. For this first team, we're actually using an Emperor boost team in order to go give Corvash a bunch of stats. He has true damage, so he's basically gaining double the benefit of it compared to physical damage, and we're just going to keep spamming him down until we can get a bunch of value from it. Next, we're using Orpheus' Verse. We ended up mentioning this earlier. Unfortunately, it is human boost, and Emperor, despite looking like a human, is not a human, it's only a construct, and because of this, we are only getting a 3 boost from this instead of a 4. However, the main reason for using this instead of one of the other ones that is getting the full boost is because of the, I will eventually find the right screen, yeah, right here. It gains enchant. It gains enchant whenever you cast it. And this will make up for overall more mana than having an extra boost ratio. I personally feel like in most situations. The other thing that's really useful about it is his colorations is a little bit better, blue and yellow. There are 2 colors that you need a lot of. Yellow in order to get devoted rolling, so you end up getting even more mana back and everything else. And blue, of course, just to feed into pretty much everything. Next, we have ourselves the Lower Rarity Underspire team, which, yeah, we do go down the Pride Guard route. Of course, you can go either or, it doesn't really matter. I think I did this mostly for coloration, though you can go down either route, doesn't really matter. Either Lion Commander and or Pride Guard. And we're basically sacrificing our Falconer. We pretty much are going to pretend it doesn't exist. It's going to give us a little bit of mana accumulation up front. we're going to be using our weapons. We'll constantly keep resummoning in the first slot to keep giving us new troops. Devoted will be giving us a ton of armor, so that we can boost ratio either Pride Guard or Lion Commander. And then whatever one we're using, we're just going to keep poking, as they both have the same boost ratio of 4-1. And just keep spamming that out until we end up winning. And that's pretty much the game plan here. Let me actually double check. Is it actually worthwhile just to do the other one? No, I guess I don't know. It really just comes down to preference then. Or if you happen to have easier access to this. It's only a 4 damage difference. And as far as traits, neither are really doing anything different. I guess in this sense, you're getting 2 more extra life. Which is so weird. Why does this guy give armor? Because I'm pretty sure there's an armor version of this. It'd be a lot more useful if he actually gave armor. But yeah, you could just go either or. It doesn't really matter too much. Everyone's more convenient. You can even double up on it and kind of run it how we did the other one. If you really want to, like the lower rarity one. Actually, now that I moved that one troop, they're actually really similar teams. The only difference here is that we're sacrificing the Devoted. Whereas on the other one, we're not sacrificing the Devoted. We're actually putting it into a very safe spot and then just going with one of them. But you can do very similar again. Just go Devoted in first slot and then use both of them, so that you get the full team bonus. That's one of the big benefits of actually using both of them, particularly in this mode if you're going to. Definitely a lot more worthwhile. Because since you're not getting double magic here, you do get a little bit more team bonus from having all 4 unique from this. It's not that big of a difference, but a lot of armor there, which is particularly relevant because armor basically is magic in the sense that it's giving you more damage. So even though you're not getting any additional magic from it, you are gaining more damage from the amount of armor that you're getting across your entire team. So overall, still worthwhile. Anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you again, everyone, for the continued support over the last 8 years of Gems of War. And we shall continue for another 8, however long Gems of War keeps going for. Anyways, guys, thanks again. The actual anniversary day will be tomorrow, and we'll celebrate that on tomorrow night's stream. Tonight, we'll mostly just be messing with raids and, pretty much all the modes we just went over. Pretty much every team just messing around with those. And then on Tuesday, we're going to be using like 3 to 5 years worth of resources. We're going to go gold elite, like several dozen troops. We're going to go throw down to 1 billion gold as far as usage, not total. We're definitely not going to go all the way to total for 1 billion. As far as like into the guild, and we'll do a bunch of other things. Finally upgrade all of our weapons, including Mang that we've deliberately not left upgraded, because back in the day it was actually more worthwhile to not have a delay on it. But nowadays, honestly, we use Mang so little, I'm just going to max it out so we can truly say we have finally maxed all weapons, and just fun stuff like that. So we'll be messing around with that later. Anyways, guys, hope you all enjoy your week. I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.